Does dying feel like a psychedelic trip? Researchers have found DMT in mammal brains, and that can be linked to near-death experiences. The psychiatrist and philosopher Raymond Moody claimed the phrase near-death experiences to describe the vivid dreams people often experience at the end of life. He also discovered a few common elements with these near-death experiences: a bright light, a feeling of detachment from the body, a sense of warmth and comfort, and even encounters with mystical beings.
Alright, so into this video I'm going to be continuing to look into this research dealing with the near-death experience and the psychedelic experience of Dr. Eben Alexander, the famous neurosurgeon who came out with his story, which is a very in-depth study, in-depth NDE story, and has a lot. One of the reasons why his story is very important is because it has a lot of the elements of the near-death experiences which can be corroborated. Some of the things he mentioned, some of the things that occurred during his near-death experience, things that he couldn't know dealing with some family situations, and so on and so forth. Everything can be cross-corroborated. Him being a medical professional, he's a whistleblower in the medical field because he knows when you are supposed to have consciousness, when you are supposed to be hallucinating, what hallucinations are composed of. As a medical professional, he has an in-depth knowledge on all of this. So he came back from his experience and he said, yes, everything is true, this is not a hallucination, there's something going on, and we as the medical fields need to look into this. So then came this research where afterwards, as part of his journey, as part of his perhaps need to understand, he went through a psychedelic experience, the most psychedelic experience known to man through 5-MeO-DMT. And now we have research comparing all of this, and we also have some previous research comparing the DMT experience to the near-death experience coming from the Imperial College London, with leaders Christopher Timmerman. I covered this before. Everything that I find that I've already covered in this channel, I'm going to be linking it below. Otherwise, I will link only the studies. You can go through them yourself. You can make your own criteria. So let's get into it. So, before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so to start this comparison, I'm gonna be looking into some of the initial graphs of these studies. So first we go into the one dealing with the near-death experience and the DMT experience of Eben Alexander. Now this graph is showing where the two experiences correlate and where the two of them, NDE plus 5-MeO-DMT, share specific aspects, but this is only for the experiences from Eben Alexander. This is not a comprehensive study like the one from Christopher Timmerman and his team, where this was a comprehensive study with a lot of people being surveyed. This one is only for Eben Alexander. So I'm going to go through not all of them, but some of this. And what I like about this study from Eben Alexander is that each of these items, he goes in depth into all of these things, what happened, what was said, how did he feel about it, so on and so forth. So this makes it a very interesting, compelling case. So let's go through it. So some of the things that correlate, according to him, is the ego dissolution. We know that this happens in NDEs and 5-MeO-DMT, where people don't really know they are themselves. They stop being who they are. They sort of take a break of who they are. Now this is something that is very hard for people, and some people who go and report their psychedelic experiences, they are very thrown off by this because they realize that their beloved ego, who they are, their persona, one of the main issues that we have on this planet, I would say, and on our regular social encounters and social dynamics, it's ego. It's all about the ego. We think this is the most important thing. It's all about status in our modern society. But now when you understand that this ego is really just some sort of a facade, this is a very hard pill to swallow for people. This is why a lot of people who start to get into this research on it, or into these things, they cannot accept it, because they realize that they cannot cope with the idea that they don't really exist, that their persona, their identity, is some sort of a tool or clothing for something bigger. But that's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is that behind the ego, behind the persona, and behind the individual identity, we as humans, as consciousness, seem to be something much, much larger than the individual selves that we think to be. So this is one of those, and this goes through the out-of-body experience, which happens in both experiences. So people go outside of their bodies. They're no longer cues or entrenched or interconnected with the brain, it seems. And now in this channel I have some other research dealing with brainwaves. So both of these altered states of consciousness and some other altered states of consciousness occur while people are in a delta brainwave state. What is the delta brainwave? The delta brainwave is the slowest oscillations that our brain can have. So this is, I made a short or a clip dealing with Ivan Alexander. He explains this. This is what we know about the delta brainwave. This is the slowest that we can have, which means that the brain is not even all that active. It's barely active. So the brain is not creating this consciousness. The brain is not active. The brain is not acting as the interconnector between the physical world and, let's call it consciousness, let's call it the spirit world, whatever you want to call it, is not there. So when people go into the delta brainwaves, what seems to be happening is that we either untethered from our brain, or we connect with something else, or we are our consciousness is somewhere else. So both of these experiences, and I got research in this channel about this, happen during the delta brainwave. When people are dying, they have been connected to EEG machines. As the first EEG conducted, what seems to happen in both of the experiences, also in the psychedelic breakthrough, is an explosion of brainwave activity. It goes into gamma, then it goes into beta, then it goes into alpha, so on and so forth. But then at some point it goes into delta, and it seems that the heavy psychedelic experience, and most likely the more meaningful near-death experience, occurs when our brain is not as active. So whatever consciousness is seems to be outside of the brain. Alright, so the next item here is the space-time transcendence. So what a lot of people say about these altered states of consciousness is that when they go to the other side, when they have the experience, they realize that time does not work the same, neither does space. So a lot of people, they don't have bodies in this other side, in this experience. So what they say is that they think about something and they are there. They look at themselves, sometimes they see bodies, and Robert Monroe speaks about this. Robert Monroe is the pioneer of out-of-body experiences, and he is the founder of the Monroe Institute, and he called it the second body. And there's anecdotes in his books where sometimes limbs can be stretched, sometimes he only saw the upper part of his body, sometimes people have a full body, sometimes they say what. So the Monroe Institute now is composed of a lot of people who are studying these phenomena, who go through out-of-body experiences. They explain that if you need a body in the other side, you will create a body, you will manifest, just like you can manifest scenes or places and so on and so forth. It ties with the fifth concept here of hyperdimensionality. People say they go, so they call it here multiverse. So this whole idea, I've covered this in the channel, the whole idea, the only way for the multiverse to exist, it is that reality is not as physical or as solid as we might think, and it's all mental. So if it's all mental, there's endless possibilities, and that seems to be what happens when people go outside of the body. As I explained, these both experiences happen when we are not tethered to our brains. So it seems to be in this realm of non-physicality. So another thing that they talk about here is the unity of experience and the quote-unquote cosmic love. So one of the things that I go on over and over is this idea that it all seems to be more positive and more amazing than any fantasy, than any religion. We think about religion, we think about some of the Eastern religions based on dogma, based on penitence, based on discipline. And this is not what seems to be the underlying reality. The underlying reality seems to be about this quote unquote love. So this is something very hard to understand, because what they explain is that it is not the love that we think about when we are on this earth, on this planet. It's a different type of love. Some people say that this love is literal energy, pure energy. So all of these 5 items are what it correlates. As I said, just this is specifically to Eben Alexander's experience. Thank you so much for watching. If you find any value in the content that I'm putting forward, please consider supporting the project through Patreon on the links below. Likewise, you can like, share, subscribe, comment, or follow me on other social media so more people have access to this information. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next one.